Okay, then let's start. So as previously mentioned about stress management and coping in stressful times in our lives. I'm Nurdan Kozan, and I work for Nafsology Psychology Center as a clinical psychologist. Let me introduce you a little bit about who we are. So, as Nafsology, we are a psychology and psychiatry center licensed in Dubai with a qualified team of psychologists and psychiatrists helping individuals in a wide range of areas. So, at this moment, we are 7 psychologists working within the Nafsology Psychology Center. So what we do is we provide psychiatry services, individual psychotherapy, child and adolescent therapy, couples therapy. We provide some psychoeducational and clinical assessments. And also we offer some corporate services and some workshops and events. Before starting a little bit about myself, so I'm Nurdan. I got my master's in clinical psychology from Leiden University, and currently I'm doing my PhD in Essex University in psychosocial and psychoanalytic studies. I offer psychotherapy in both English and in Turkish. I offer individual psychotherapy for adolescents starting from 16 years of age. I provide individual therapy for adults. I provide parenting consulting, counseling, and I provide some workshops and seminars on a wide range of topics. My expertise is on adjustment, life changes, mood disorders, anxiety, depression, some family-related difficulties, relationship-related difficulties, grief, bipolar disorder, eating disorder, and I help, obviously, healthy individuals in making some decisions in their lives. And I work with work-related difficulties and stress management, self-esteem issues as well as personality disorders. So I will move on with defining what is stress. Okay, so as we all know, stress is a natural physiological response to an event through our mind and body. It's a normal part of our lives because as human beings, we cannot control what happens in our lives. So stress at a certain level is needed to get going and to stay motivated in our lives. But at some point, it may become overwhelming. So when and why is stress becoming a problem? So if stress affects our daily life, our responsibilities, and our overall well-being and functioning in our lives, then we may consider that stress may have reached a certain level. And chronic high levels they are linked with some physiological and psychological difficulties in the long term. So as we'll move on, we'll talk about how we respond to stress and how we can change the way we respond to stress. We can change the way we respond to stress by the way we change our thoughts and behaviors, and through some stress relief techniques that we'll discuss in this presentation. So what happens when we are under stress? So our thoughts, our feelings, and behaviors are interconnected with each other and they influence each other. So thoughts are basically how we think about a particular situation. Excuse me, can you all mute, please? I hear some noises. Thank you. So thoughts are basically how we think about a particular situation, and how we perceive, how we think about a particular situation. It affects how we feel and how we behave, how we act in that particular situation. And emotions are what we feel at that situation, and what we feel, it affects how we think about that situation and how we act in that situation. And behaviors are how we behaved in a particular situation. And again, it has a connection with our thoughts and our emotions. So these three are interconnected to each other. And when there is a stressful situation, I try to outline here what happens under stressful situations, what happens in our minds, what happens in our feelings, and what happens in our behaviors. Of course, I try to give some examples, and they may change from person to person. But an example would be, for example, under a stressful situation, a person might tend to think pessimistically, might tend to engage in self-criticism, might engage in some negative self-talk. And these thoughts, these thinking patterns influence the way that person feels at that moment. And the person might feel depressed, the person might feel angry or anxious. And then there's always a behavior at the end. The person might feel withdrawn, the person might have a tendency to avoid the situation and maybe move away from that situation. So sometimes it's hard to track the thoughts, but we feel something. We say, yeah, okay, I don't feel good at this moment. I feel depressed. I feel angry. But cognitive behavior theory says that there is always some thought process going on before we feel something. Okay, so I tried to outline here what happens in a stressful situation, what happens on our minds, emotions, and how it affects how we behave. So I mentioned about particular ways of thinking under stress. We may tend to think in all or nothing way, which is, for example, we might say it's not worth even trying. It's either all or nothing. Or we might engage in perfectionist thinking patterns. We might say, I'm not good enough in this. So it's either the perfect way or nothing. Again, we might jump to conclusions. We might say, I won't be successful in this. So before even trying, the individual engaged in jumps to a solution, conclusion in this case. And the individual might engage in catastrophizing. So from a particular situation, from a maybe tiny little stressor, the individual might go to catastrophizing, and the individual might think like, okay, I'm going to be fired because I made a mistake. Or the individual might engage in personalization, thinking like, this is all my fault. I shouldn't have behaved that way. So the individual takes all the blame, all the fault in himself or herself in this case. Another error in thinking would be overgeneralizing. It would be like an individual might think like everything I do is a failure. So from a little tiny maybe mistake or from a little misunderstanding, the individual might think that everything he or she does is a failure. Okay. And another error in thinking would be discounting the positives, but focusing only on the negatives. For example, an individual might say, She's saying nice things about me because she's my friend, like she's my mom. Otherwise, she would say. So obviously, in this situation, there might be something positive, but this person might disregard the positive sides of the situation, but focus on the negative side. Another error in thinking is mind reading. The individual mind read the mind of the other person and come to a conclusion in this case. And the individual might think, I don't invite her because she'll say no. She'll always say no. So before even trying, the person jumps into a conclusion here as well. Another error in thinking is should statements. It happens in the form of like, I should have known this would happen. Like the person set some rules for himself or herself and things in the form of these should statements. And the last one I will mention is labeling. So there might be something stressful. There might be some maybe hard situation, and the individual might not feel content about what is going on, but the individual labels himself or herself by saying like, I'm an idiot. I mean, this happened because I'm an idiot. Okay, so I tried to outline how individuals may engage in errors in thinking when the individual faces a stressful situation. So, sorry, I jumped. So stress does not only affect our thoughts, but it also affects what happens in our body. It also affects our brain, our cardiovascular system, our immune system, our muscles, our reproductive system even, and our skin and gut. So maybe you are familiar with it. If a person is under stress or feels anxious, that person might find it difficult concentrating. That person might feel anxious, depressed, might feel irritable, might have some mind fog, brain fog. And I tried to outline also some other long-term and chronic results of feeling under stress. So stress is linked with high cholesterol, higher blood pressure, increased risk of heart attack and stroke, and some aches, pains in the body, muscle tightness in the body. It's linked with decreased immune function, lowered immune defenses, and in terms of the skin, it's linked with some hair loss, some problems within the skin, and like acne or like delayed tissue repair. And it's linked with some decreased hormone production and decreased libido and increase in PMS symptoms. And it's linked with some constipation issues as well. So let's talk about what happens when the body is under stress. When there's a perceived stress, nervous system gets fired. Nervous system says either fight, fly, or freeze in this situation. The nervous system engages in such an action because it tries to protect the body from the perceived stress. This mechanism is adaptive and it's protective. So as a result of this fight, flight, or freeze response, some of the stress hormones are released, like cortisol and epinephrine, and blood pressure is increased. So in a way, body gets ready to cope with a stressor in order to protect the body from the stressor. However, when this nervous system firing happens chronically, body perceives a threat chronically. So it results in as a threat to mental and physical well-being as well. So we need to learn how to cope with stress in this case. And how can we cope with stress? Let's talk a little bit about this from now on. So maybe you've heard of the term resilience quite a lot. We can cope with stress by increasing our resilience. And resilience is described as our ability to recover from difficult times. So from now on, everything I explain to you serves the purpose of increasing your resilience. So I'll move on with discussing some of the self-help strategies from now on. So we all have difficult times. We will all have difficult times ahead. But as we feel more resilient as in our body, in our minds, we can deal with that situation. We can cope with that situation in a better way. So here are some suggestions for coping with stress. I'll start with explaining about balancing wishes and obligations. Systems theory says that a person feels anxiety as a result of the conflict between what the individual enjoys doing and his or her obligations. So distinguish your wishes from your obligations. Wishes are desires, preferences, and goals that an individual expresses, and obligations are have-tos in our lives. They are expectations or demands placed upon individuals in order to achieve, in order to meet expectations. So it's all about finding a balance between your personal wishes and the obligations, which are part of our lives at the same time. So I tried to display here this balance. In our lives, we have both obligations and both things we enjoy doing and things that we want to go on doing. So when there is imbalance, there is more stress, there is more anxiety. Balancing individuals' wishes and obligations helps to resolve the inner conflicts and sources of stress. So it facilitates an open and constructive communication as a result, and the person feels more fulfilled in life as a result. Another way of coping is changing the way we think. I tried to make an introduction to this in my previous slides in the presentation. I tried to make an introduction about how we tend to think under stressful conditions. So now I'll talk about how we can recognize the way we are thinking in nutrition. So we need to start by recognizing how we are seeing that particular stressor, how we are dealing with that, and then we need to challenge our beliefs. Our beliefs are a bit more deep-seated than the thoughts. Then we need to challenge our beliefs and then reach to a conclusion and maybe accept what is beyond our control and move on. Let me talk a little bit about how you can change your thoughts. As I mentioned before, sometimes individuals tend to grasp that feeling. Oh, I was sad, I was stressed, I was anxious in that situation. So there's always some thought happening before that feeling. Track your thoughts. Track how you're thinking about that particular situation. Are you engaging in negative self-talk? Are you having some pessimistic thoughts? Are you criticizing yourself? And then, as a next step, be aware of how you're behaving in that situation. Are you avoiding that stressful situation? Are you running away from it? Are you suppressing your feelings? Are you distracting yourself from it by maybe keeping yourself busy, drinking or eating? Okay, so the first step is just becoming aware of what is going on at that particular moment, what is going on your thoughts, your feelings, and the way you are behaving in that situation. You can create an activity and mood diary every day. Okay, so you can start by identifying what made you stressed that day. You can look back to that day and ask yourself, how was I feeling? Did I have some hard emotions today? Did I find it difficult to deal with some emotions today? Did I feel maybe anxious, sad, or angry, on the edge, uncomfortable? And then, secondly, you can ask yourself, what was going on my mind just before that feeling? Maybe you were thinking you won't be able to do that. Maybe you were blaming yourself for what was going on. Okay, so just identify what made you feel that way, and by identifying that, try to focus on your thought patterns rather than the other person. Okay, because what we deal with and what we can change is the way you are perceiving that situation, not the entire situation or not the other person. And then ask yourself, how did I behave in that situation? You can take a note of this slide as well if you would like, just as a note for yourself. And then, this takes some time to track how you're feeling or how you're thinking in that way, in that situation. But by engaging in it every day, you start to be more aware of what's happening. But of course, give yourself some time before you're spotting these things. And another question to ask might be, can you see any patterns in the way you're thinking, in the way you're behaving, or the way you're feeling in these situations? So after you identify how you're feeling, ask yourself, how did you cope with that feeling? Was it helpful? Was your coping strategy helpful in short or long term? As I mentioned, maybe you're trying to get away from it, maybe you want to avoid it, maybe you're arguing with that feeling, maybe you're trying to suppress that feeling. Okay, so ask yourself, how did you cope yourself with that feeling? And ask yourself, what did you need at that particular moment? What would be helpful for you in order to better manage that feeling, better cope with that feeling? Um, and again, ask yourself, how could you satisfy that need at that time? For example, you might be feeling very tense. Uh, you might need some breathing. You might need to have a break in that moment. You might need to express your needs. Okay, so sometimes, for example, um, sometimes people feel anxious and have a tendency to fly from that situation, to avoid that situation. But try to think about what else would be more appropriate, would work better for you, I would say. Because, like, if you have a pattern of escaping from stressful, anxious situations, then it's a bit hard for you to face with it and then recognize your needs. Of course, it needs some time, and it's not easy as we're talking at this moment. But try to engage in in more questions about what could work better, what could I do, how 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 could I express my need in that particular situation, and what was hard in that particular situation. I mean, why was it hard for me in that situation? So after you identify how you're feeling and how what your needs are, you can focus on how you behaved in that situation. How did you cope with it behaviorally? Again, was it helpful in short term? Generally, it's helpful in the short term, but in the long term, then it might not be very helpful. And ask yourself, are there any patterns of behaviors that you're engaging in when you face a stressor? Um, and ask yourself, could there be some alternatives? Can you try something else? Again, based on your needs, what you're needing at that moment. Can you try something else? And think about how would these alternative behaviors serve your values as you are, and how that alternative behaviors would be helpful in the long term, maybe from the previous example, to face that situation, maybe little by little. Would it be helpful, or what would be the hard part for you? So try to engage in more detail. I mean, only maybe keeping a track or asking these questions to yourself might might be helpful, although you may not be able to answer all of the questions, which makes totally sense. And sometimes you feel stuck in that particular situation. You feel like you cannot move, you cannot change your thoughts, maybe you cannot behave alternatively. So write down what you can control at that time and what you cannot control. Write down, for example, what is beyond your control at that moment, what you cannot change at that moment, and write down what you can do with this hard feeling, what you can, how you can serve to your own needs, how you can be more compassionate about yourself, uh, and accept what is happening, rather than struggling or pushing that feeling for one direction. Accept that feeling instead of fighting with it, instead of like trying to get away from it. Because at that particular stressful situation, maybe, not maybe, probably it's a very natural reaction. Your feelings are very naturally, how you're feeling is very natural in that situation. Okay, so accept that you may not control the uncontrollable things in your lives, for example, behaviors of others, maybe behaviors of your boss or of your friend, but be aware that you can control how you can respond to these people. Okay, and try to, I know it's not very easy, but try to enjoy the things that you have to do. Try to enjoy things that you cannot control, rather than trying to change it or trying to fight with that idea. And maybe for the midterm or the long term, reflect on how you would like to move on through your life goals. I mean, there is a situation, a stressful situation, and you might be struggling, but think about your midterm and long-term goals as well. So you won't be in this situation forever. Think about how you can change the situation you're in. What would work? What wouldn't work? Um, in order to reach these goals, your life goals. And try to experience some success and fulfillment in your life. When we put some really big goals, sometimes it feels really hard to reach that big goal, but it's very natural that it may need some time. So if you put some small goals, maybe some steps to yourself, you can appreciate what you have done more. You can experience fulfillment at each step more. And try to share what you're feeling under that uncontrollable situations. Okay, you can share your feelings with the other person, with someone who supports you. Like recognize and express, try to express what you're feeling in that uncontrollable situation. It feels more relieving to share your feelings rather than fighting with that feelings, trying to suppress that feeling, because feelings occur naturally. And master communicating your concerns, your needs and wishes clearly with others. Okay, so you can again, you can try to express more what you're needing in that situation, how you're feeling in that situation. And again, think about how you can set boundaries for yourself in that particular situation. Think about how far your boundaries can go in that situation, what you can accept and what you cannot accept. Sometimes recognizing your boundaries, reflecting on your boundaries also helps how you will react in that situation, how you will behave in that situation. And some other suggestions would be taking care of your sleep routine, because sleep is very important for your mood and for your physical health. So going bed too late, getting less sleep or too much sleep, it can also lead to some emotional problems and difficulties. Because when we are under stress, we sleep less, and then when we sleep less, we are stressed more as a result. So try to set a sleep routine for yourself. Set consistent sleep and wake times. Try to relax before bedtime. You can try some guided meditations before bedtime. I will give you some recommendations of some of the online applications that you can use. You can try some relaxing teas, take away some of the light coming to your room. And you need to keep electronics at a distance from yourself. Avoid stressors just before bedtime. and avoid caffeine before bedtime, and take care of how much caffeine you are consuming. All regular exercises are linked with emotional resilience to stress, because exercise releases endorphins that make you feel good, that make you feel more resilient in that situation. And yoga is proven to reduce stress, enhance, engage in self-compassion, and encourage mindfulness. And take care of your nutrition, because maintaining a balanced diet, a healthy diet, gives you more energy to deal with challenges and stress. And alcohol or smoking can increase anxiety, make you feel more depressed, can alter your assessment of reality and lead to some behavioral changes for you. When you are under stress, beware that social support increases your resilience. So have yourself supported by people you love, people who support you, and spend some time on building your relationships. Maybe if you're going through some particular times in your lives, like divorce, or some other difficulties, have a look at some of the online support groups. It really works well. It really increases your resilience and well-being to be connected with people going through the same stages as you are. So stress, as I mentioned before, results in tense muscles, headaches, and fatigue. You can try some muscle relaxation exercises, because it reduces the cortisol levels in your body, and it controls your anxiety, heart rate, and blood pressure as a result. Try to engage in relaxation and breathing exercises when you either wake up or just before going to bed. It really works well. And here are some of the applications I recommend you. Some of them are free applications that you can have a look, you can try. You can choose the length of the meditation or relaxation you would like to engage in. And if you feel overwhelmed and when self-help techniques does not work, search for a clinical psychologist or mental health specialist who can help you manage your stress. Okay. Now, I would like to try a breathing exercise with you all. So I think your cameras are already off, which is fine. So it's not very long. I think it will take like 5 to 10 minutes in total. Let's try how breathing and how you can practice some easy relaxation techniques on your own. So now I'll ask you to feel as comfortable as possible in where you're sitting. You can sit in a maybe more comfortable place, a comfortable chair or sofa. And make sure your feet are on the ground. Your arms are loose and relaxed. You can either close your eyes or you can just look in your front without looking in the room. So if you're ready, breathe deeply through your nose and count up to 5. And when you're done, exhale through your mouth and count up to 5 while exhaling. Now, in your own rhythm, Please try it again. Breathe deeply through your nose and count up to 5. And exhale through your mouth while you're counting up to 5 while exhaling. Try to repeat it 3 times on your own and on your own rhythm. Either keep your eyes closed or look in your front without any distraction. Please feel free to go on. If you would like, you can repeat it more time. You can try this exercise whenever you feel like you're tense, your body is tense, your mind is tense, or if you recognize that you're going through a hard moment. It doesn't have to be really big. If you're feeling uncomfortable in any particular situation, you can just try this. Try it maybe 5, 6, or 10 times, depending on your availability and how it makes you feel. So in a way, it distracts your mind and your body from what is going on at that moment, and instead it makes you focus on your breath, and it as we have talked before, it calms your nervous system as well. It says, okay, there was tension, but now um, there is some stillness going on. Now I can feel better. Okay, if you're all done, um, I see that there are some questions. I mean, our session today was over, and now I see some questions on the chat. Please let me read them and try to answer them. We have 10 more minutes until we finish the webinar. Okay, so I see from Fatima. Okay, thank you for your question. Yeah. Of course, we all have some obligations, but sometimes if they are too much, like if you have work, if your family obligations after work, and then you have some other obligations, then there is no availability for your wishes. In a way, there is no availability to make you feel make you feel happy and make you feel yourself, because your wishes are on the background. Your wishes cannot be realized. So you asked how we should establish boundaries. I mean, it might be hard sometimes, I understand it, but you might try to first think about how you can create maybe little time for your wishes, how you can ask help of others, how you can distinguish between real I mean, the most you can maybe make a list of the mostly required obligations, and then go to the the preferred obligations. And then rather than trying to fulfill all of the obligations, you can have a look at how you can fulfill the really required obligations, and how flexible you can be with less required obligations. Or you may ask, you may think about how you can take help from others, or how you can organize maybe the less required obligations. Sometimes in life we are just running all around, and we forget to think about our wishes, and as a result we don't have any chance to feel content. We don't have maybe some time left to feel to cherish, to feel happy. So it's all about, I think, stopping and thinking about what you can compromise and what you cannot, and how you can allocate time for your wishes. How could you do so? Because if you don't think about it, no one else will think about it. And Sidra. So you asked about how we can recognize big or small distresses. I mean, I mean, how you perceive it is the important thing. It doesn't have to be big or small according to some objective standards. You need to think about it on your own. Maybe you can ask yourself, from 0 to 10, how stressful is this situation for me, for myself? Okay, so in this case you can rate it according to yourself, because it matters to you, not to others. Okay, and again you can ask the questions about, how is it affecting me? Is it preventing me to enjoy the things I used to enjoy? Is it preventing me to engage in actions I used to engage happily? I used to engage with less effort. Okay, and you can ask how much it interferes with your responsibilities, how much it interferes with how much you enjoy that situation. So there's nothing like big or small stress. You need to ask yourself how big is for yourself, this stress is for yourself, and how it affects you. And you wrote, it might result in a cost to our mental health. So if you think it really costs to your mental health, then maybe you can, maybe it's the time to ask for some help. Okay. But again, keep in mind, rating yourself, thinking how you, I mean, recognizing how you're feeling and then rating how intense you're feeling in that case. Maybe it can make you engage in more reflection. You can engage yourself more. I hope I could answer your questions. Please let me know if you have any other questions. We have a couple of more minutes. And if not, I hope you enjoyed today's session. And please feel free to reach out if you would like any help in anything. Thanks. So if there is no other questions, I'm ending the session. I saw one question from Ikra Ali. Well, I mean, you can maybe try to engage that person in self-help techniques I just briefly mentioned in this session. You can tell this person about what you have heard from me, and you can try to support that person, try to engage him or her, talk about his or her feelings more, what he needs, what you can do, you know. And I mean, if you think that you cannot be of help, I mean, if it's not enough for him or her, and you can maybe motivate him or her to ask for some help. There are some self-help books as well that you might refer to them. One of them is called Mind Over Moon. I'll just write down in the chat. This is a good self-help book. It's in English. It's available in English. But if you think that your stress level is higher and you cannot cope with it, you can always ask for help. Thank you for your participation. Have a good evening, everyone.